So our presentation is called Into the Gloss or Out of the Gloss. Okay, so the background of Glossier. It was founded in 2014 by CEO Emily Weiss, and it originated on her blog called Into the Gloss. It offers skincare, makeup, body care, fragrance, and merchandise, and their range of products are offered individually as well as in sets. And then a SWOT analysis of Glossier. So some of their strengths are that they do have a strong online following on social media with 2.7 million followers on Instagram, as well as they have strong branding and brand recognition. And they do have popular aesthetics and like popular packaging designs that they're very easily recognizable. Their products are cruelty free, and in turn, with their strong online following, they do have a positive use of influencer marketing and celebrity endorsements. And one strength that was also noted was their connection to the Into the Gloss blog that is still used today. And within their industry, they are classified as an affordable option for most people. But some of their weaknesses are that they do have a limited availability of retail or physical store locations. Most of their stores are usually short-term, like pop-up stores, with the exception of 3 permanent stores in New York City, Los Angeles, and London. And right now, part of their weakness is that their stores are closed until next year due to COVID-19. And in turn, they have limited operating regions of North America and the UK. And so then they're not a global brand, but they're in high demand to be a global brand. And they have, because of this, they have a limited capitalization on a global scale. So some of their opportunities are that they have a high demand to become global. They have a very wide outreach with their online presence. So like what they share through social media does reach a very wide audience. And they have an opportunity to create more physical locations, especially ones that are outside major cities, because maybe not everybody could get into New York City or LA or London. So if they were to do those outside of major cities, you know, they would reach more people. And they have many opportunities to expand their range of products in cosmetics, skincare, and other applicable products that they would come up with. And lastly, some of their threats are a risk of losing online customers to already global and recognizable brands that maybe are easily accessible or affordable, or maybe those brands are sent out on like a global scale. And most of their sales are online, so there is a threat of bad reviews or negative reviews that could hurt them. And it already is a saturated market, so their brand themselves could get lost amongst many others. And their short lifespan, their short time as a company does hurt them, like in comparison to maybe like Maybelline or any other bigger global company that's been around for a very long time. And so then just some background of the situation that we analyzed. So in 2019, before this, there was a call for more diversity in their products. Many customers begged for a more inclusive variety of shades that were appropriate for the diversity of people, because originally a lot of their products were just named like light, medium, and dark. So then they re-released an expansion of their shades for most popular products like foundation and powder, and then they changed the naming system that ranged from G1 through G12. So there's a lot more options for their customers, so they had a wider reach in that sense. And on August 7th, 2020, former employees publicized their experiences. So their former retail employees in the actual stores were laid off due to COVID-19 layoffs across the board. But they publicized their experiences of racism and microaggressions within their time at the company and in its retail stores. These experiences were due to poor management and racism that were entirely dismissed, that they brought up. And then their letter was an open call to the CEO to react to this and change their ways. So on August 13th, 2020, they formulated an out of the gloss open letter. So former employees, they wrote an open letter to Emily Weiss that they published on a blog called Out of the Gloss, which was a take on her blog name. They addressed several incidents at the retail locations during their employment, and they were ignored or dismissed. So it was a call for change was made directed at Weiss. And on July 10th, 2020, their public statement before this was on their website with an action plan that included human resources support dedicated to retail employees and developing policies that hold their customers accountable for conduct in our stores before it reopens its retail locations. And then it was also announced later that on their Instagram page, 500,000 in donations were spread across organizations fighting for social justice, as well as the promise of investment in Black-owned beauty businesses through grant programs. And then this was their original letter to Glossier to change their ways and like how they handled, like incidents. And then this was just one quote that stuck out to me through them, and it says, "A man who'd felt entitled enough to massage an editor," which is what they call their retail store employees, without her consent, a customer grabbing a Black editor by the face to show off her complexion to a friend, repeatedly permitting a woman to enter the store whose sole engagement was with Latina workers, who she would disparage as illegals, and a group of chaperone white teens who'd come in near closing time and applied some of our darkest complexion products in gleeful blackface, or even after countless complaints, management wouldn't fire a manager who would routinely confuse BIPOC editors' names over and over again. And all of these complaints were just dismissed as a whole, and no repercussions were made after. And some of the key stakeholders and principal players, so Emily Weiss, the CEO, Glossier store employees, which were also called editors, it's the same thing, and especially the former employees who were fired in this time, and then in part the media, specifically those monitoring the pull up or shut up movement, and then basically their key publics would mostly be their customers who were watching this unfold. And then why was PR needed? So it was needed for image management, reputation management, so they kind of are the same thing in turn, but they also needed brand protection because of backlash, or as this gained attention, and to create a response and a recovery plan.
So the description of the PR process, it began on May 30th when Glossier, they announced that they stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. They pledged to donate a total of $1 million, $500,000 going to organizations fighting racial injustice, and $500,000 to Black-owned beauty businesses. And underneath, I wrote that it promotes corporate social responsibility for that company. Then on June 11th, Glossier posted how exactly that money would be allocated, along with the deadline for businesses to register. Again, that promotes CSR and transparency. Then on August 13th, a group of former Glossier employees, known as Out of the Gloss, posted an open letter addressing frequent managerial and racial issues while working there, with a list of demands for change. So that was a call for action. Then the next day, CEO of Glossier, Emily Weiss, she responds through a blog post, and it was titled "The Glossier Retail Experience, Addressing Their Issues, Apologizing and Vowing to Make Changes," which promotes accountability. So, and then the same day, Out of the Gloss, they expressed their dissatisfaction with Emily's blog post, saying that it was empty. And then 3 days later, Glossier, they posted on their Instagram revealing that complaints of racism began in early June, and a plan of action that would, and they released also a plan of action that would work on the following areas, which are dialogue, company-wide training, retail management, work environment, human resources, growth, and performance. So that same day, Out of the Gloss, they posted that they were not happy with Emily's plan of action, stating that a detailed response will be released soon. Now, on August 18th, Fortune, they published an exclusive story with Out of the Gloss titled "Ex-Glossier Employees Described a Company That Failed to Support Black Workers, Even as It Donated $1 million in Racial Justice Causes," which is a form of earned media. And then August 24th, Out of the Gloss posted a detailed response to Emily's plan. 4 days later, on the 28th, Out of the Gloss, they began to post testimonials of other former or current Glossier employees who had similar experiences, which supports, the authenticity of their claims. Then the next day, Out of the Gloss, they posted an appreciation post for their followers, thanking them for their support, which promotes and strengthens community dialogue. So on September 9th, Out of the Gloss, they posted that it's been 16 days and they haven't received a response. And the way they did so, I believe, was clever because they posted an image of Glossier's hoodie, and underneath they wrote, "Has not engaged to our response since 16 days ago." Then on September 30th, out of the gloss, they began the hashtag boycott Glossier. So with that post, there was a video and it showed multiple comments of followers suggesting that they do just that. So, and the caption said, "You asked, we listened." So I guess the followers suggested that they should promote a boycott. So, and then the same day, out of the gloss, they posted, "Let's talk about the B word. Hashtag boycott Glossier, listing things to do to stop supporting the brand." So, and then on October 1st, out of the gloss posted "boy brow, more like boycott," with a photo of Glossier's boy brow mascara. So on October 5th, out of the gloss, they posted another image saying "Glossier has a problem and we have a solution." And they incorporated Glossier's product, which is named Solution. And as you can see, the next two posts, they did the same thing. So on October 6th, out of the gloss, they posted "Our demands need to be heard. Meet our demands," again with a picture of Glossier's foundation, which is called Future Dew. Then on the 9th, out of the gloss, posted "Our intentions are super pure. We just want to see Glossier change for the better," with a photo of Glossier's super pure product. And then on the 18th, out of the gloss, posted a call to action requesting supporters to email Glossier since they have yet to receive a response. And on the bottom, it says that these posts were all clever and it promotes, like attention. It enhances attention. Okay, so the PR process currently. Out of the gloss continues to push their efforts to boycott Glossier by creating hashtag no Glossier for the holidays. Now, their objective is to hold Glossier accountable for failures in managerial and racial issues by notifying the public to grow support in hopes of achieving a change within the community, and also boycotting Glossier for no longer responding to their efforts of reform. So their strategies were to create media platforms like Instagram and their website, and then tactics were to post, promoting and engaging with the community. As of right now, they have a following of 13,000, and also having an exclusive story with Fortune. So if we were to evaluate how Out of the Gloss did, I believe, or we believe, they did a good job in creating community dialogue, showcasing transparency, and promoting authenticity of their claims. They were also clever by incorporating Glossier products into their messaging as puns. And as of today, Glossier has not responded since August 17th.
So the PR strategies that Glossier utilized were proactive organizational responses. They conducted environmental scanning, and they did this with internal research. They conducted Zoom calls with former employees before the incident had occurred. So they were already hearing about certain situations that had occurred and were investigating those situations privately out of the public eye. And then they also utilized reactive PR responses. They utilized a preemptive action strategy, which again were the Zoom calls and the internal investigations and research, so that they could make changes to their retail store functions, and so that these situations wouldn't happen again. And they did these Zoom calls with about several employees before the incident, before out of the gloss letter. And then after the incident, they did rectifying behavior strategy, and they did this with an investigation, a third-party investigation, and also with corrective action by, they talked to certain employees, more than a dozen employees, I believe, that Emily Weiss talked to about their experiences on the retail floor. And they also said in their statement that they would be creating an action plan so that they could rectify the behavior that had occurred and make sure that their retail stores were working to the best of their ability, and so that it was fair for everybody, and these sort of situations weren't happening again. And then they also utilized a strategic inaction strategy. This, of course, was after Glossier responded. They just went radio silent. They didn't respond to any of the demands that Out of the Gloss, their former retail employees, had demanded from them. They didn't. One of the things that Out of the Gloss had demanded from Glossier was that they work with them to redevelop this action plan so that it took into consideration all of their requests, and that it was more specific, and that there was a timeline for these sorts of changes. But Glossier decided not to respond, and that really, in terms of corporate social responsibility, probably isn't the best thing. But in terms of kind of in terms of crisis management and trying to kind of keep that under the rug, kind of brushing the situation under the rug, it was a smart move, in our opinion. They used face-to-face communication tactics like Zoom calls with former employees, and they used organization-created media tactics. They sent out this email containing an action plan before the incident, and I believe they also sent out another email after the incident to their employees. They posted a letter on the Into the Gloss blog and on Glossier.com, and they posted on Instagram of the action plan. So what worked is they addressed the criticism publicly. They needed to. They couldn't just avoid it, because then it would just gain more traction if they didn't respond to any of what these people were saying. They revealed their action plan, and they limited media attention to this issue by remaining silent after their initial statement. What didn't work was that the action plan was too broad and contained no timeline, and of course this really attracted the retribution from the Out of the Gloss former employees. They were not happy that their action plan was so broad and didn't really include the voices of the people that they were claiming to try and protect through this action plan. And it contained no timeline. There was no accountability for Glossier because of that. And of course, their refusal to work with them was just a mess. It just left them open to a lot of attacks from this organization. What we would have done differently was we would have made an internal and external apology that expressed an explicit commitment to resolving racial issues on a retail and corporate level. We would have made a statement on Glossier.com and their Instagram and the Into the Gloss blog addressing the issues raised by former employees and stating that there's an ongoing investigation being conducted and that a detailed action plan will be developed with the help of former and current retail editor input. So we really wanted to make sure that that we're not making any large claims and not just putting out something that a previous action plan that we already had in our bag, just because it's easier to do that. Instead, we really want to make sure that we're taking all of these concerns that retail editors were bringing to the company and making sure that that's included in our action plan and communicating that with the public, and just really opening up a dialogue between the public and the situation what's going on. We would provide updates on the investigation findings and other initiatives set forth in the initial response through statements on the Into the Gloss blog. Again, continuing this open dialogue between the public and between Glossier and what's going on. And we would also release a new action plan when the time was right that set specific action guidelines in a timeline for when these actions would be implemented. Our discussion questions are as follows. How do you think Glossier's PR team could have turned this situation to paint Glossier in a positive light? What do you think of Glossier's use of strategic inaction? Would you have done the same or enlisted a different strategy? Why or why not? And lastly, how would you have responded to the out of the gloss open letter? What PR strategies and tactics would you use?